Okay, everybody, shall we begin? Good morning to you all.
Good morning,
Thanks for coming. I think you've all been introduced to our new clerk assistant, is it clerk assistant? Democratic Services Assistant, Emma, so who's had the introduction to us for the today's meeting, so I hope we're all going to be very respectful, thank you. And, of course, and we are, for everybody's notice, on YouTube Live. Are we on YouTube Live?
How many hits have we got so far? Have we made double figures?
The National Insomnia Society has listed us as a prime site.
My grandson thinks on it, but it's by mistake.
But what was he actually looking for? That was the question.
Came up. Dennis the fire station he was trying to find, and this come up. I just turned it off.
Right, so shall we start with apologies for absence?
Certainly, councillors Chris Davis, Dodd, Lake, Phipps, Scott, Tyrrell and Williams.
Any others that...
So I give the apologies to Colin Barrett, who actually has not had notice properly of this meeting. His son, who is no longer a member of firefighting, Nick Barrett, still gets the papers. We got them a week or so ago. And that's the second time this happened, not this meeting, the meeting before that also happened. And so Colin did not get the papers.
I'm puzzled by that because I thought Colin had retired from this committee as effective at the last meeting.
I didn't think that, yes.
And I know that the leader of the class has been in discussion with appointing a new replacement, which I thought had been done, and we were going to talk to you, Mr. Chairman, about that and make sure you were aware of it. So I can't understand why.
No, I was aware that Colin quite rightly said the last meeting, it would be his last meeting.
Well, that was his last meeting because he didn't know
about it exactly.
Really know of this.
I spoke to Colin
Go
about today,
Yes.
and he didn't know nothing about it. I see what I mean was that. And he said, well, I should still get the papers. He said, I said, but you did say it the last meeting. He said, well, because I thought that was the last meeting before the AGM. That's why I said thank you and that. He said, if there was another meeting in between then and the May AGM, I would have come.
It's interesting.
So it wasn't the fact that he resigned or anything, he thought that was the
Has
last
he resigned?
meeting.
I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know he resigned. Because you said it's your last meeting, and factually that was
That
correct.
was it.
It was the last meeting of the fire authority.
So he should have been invited today.
Yes.
I know nothing about the situation except that I got the impression at the last meeting that Colin was saying farewell.
He was, because he thought that was the last meeting. He didn't know about this, he was we had.
If you stand up and walk out in a blaze of glory and say I'm resigning, then can we be forgiven for thinking that he means
He
what he
didn't
says?
say he was resigning.
He didn't say
said
that.
it's his last meeting before the AGM.
But that's immaterial,
Yeah.
really. Is he a member of the fire authority or not at this point? Should he have received the papers? I'm getting nods that he should. Why did Nick Barrett, who we know very clearly is not a member of the fire authority, get the papers?
Yes.
That's the point
That's
I'm
the point,
making.
yeah.
No more, no less.
That's right.
So are there any other apologies we need to note?
We've deleted the wrong barracks, it would appear.
Yeah.
Correct. It looks like to me. It's an administrative
Yes,
F.
to all sorts.
What you say is yes, it's so.
Shall we go into emergency evacuation procedures? I believe that we will have some trained firefighters in the rooms. I think we'll follow them. Should there be any alarm? We're not expecting one.
We're not expecting a test today.
No.
There are a number of emergency exits in the room.
Yes.
The evacuation point is outside the main entrance.
Okay.
Do you realise what your chair?
Blocking the fire exit.
This exit here, isn't it? Somebody was using this room earlier on.
There shouldn't.
Declarations of interest, do we have any? The chair's business, and there is very little, but I would like to, this will be our last meeting of the municipal year. I'd like on behalf of all of us to thank the staff, team, firefighters, back office staff at the Fire Rescue Service for all the very hard work they've done in what's been an extremely difficult year. I think it's been a very challenging year for the fire service generally, really think about the impact of Grenfell Tower. So I'd like to say thank you very much from us as an authority to all our staff, everything they've done for us. I'd like to thank members too for their support in what's been a very difficult year. I'd like to also congratulate the man to my right on his appointment as a substantive Chief Fire Officer from 1st of September. And I'll now proceed on to the minutes of the Fire Authority held the 23rd of March. Are we happy those are a true and correct record? We have a proposer?
Yeah.
Seconder? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. I'll sign those then. Public access. Do we have to do public access? We've gone to item 7, which is minutes of the extraordinary meeting of the General Purposes Committee held on the 11th of April. Be for noting.
Just on that one, it says Councillor Scott is not present, he usually was present because he actually come here, but the wrong day.
Yes.
So it just thought, it's not that he did send his apologies.
I think that counts as being not present.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it's not as though he just couldn't be bothered to send his apologies or not turn up.
So with that exception of adding Councillor Scott to the apologies, are we happy to accept those?
Chairman, ask if the meeting is full.
Yes.
It's fine. Is 4 full?
Yes.
2 is a quorum for that.
Four. Are we happy to note those? Yes? Okay. We've gone to item number 8, consultation on the Composition of the Fire Authority, the main reason why we're here today. I'll just do a very brief preamble in terms of where we are with this. I thank members for the responses they've given and the various bits of assistance they have in terms of looking at the numbers. It's been very clear to me that it's for the Avon Fire Authority to decide its numbers. We are a local authority in our own right. It's been confirmed to me by the monitoring officer, by the Home Office and independent legal opinion that it's for us to set the numbers that we have on our authority, and we are due to act for the public of Avon to keep them safe through that fire authority and the fire service. We did do a consultation to the members of the public, because after all they fund our service, and I was very pleased with the fact that we had 53 responses, which I think proportionately is very good when you compare it to many other consultations that local authorities take. The responses, though, do give us no particular lead. The fact that all the 3 options are roughly agreed by members of the public as being preferable to them. So there's no clear lead through the public consultation. I would say, though, that Bristol City Council, of all the 4 authorities, as I understand it, actually have done a consultation with all the parties within Bristol City Council to come to a number which they think is acceptable. And sadly, the other 3 authorities have not done the same, but I'm very keen on the fact that Bristol consulted everybody and came up with a number. And I would like to go through the recommendations in the paper one by one, if members are happy with that. The proposal is, and forgive me to get the right page 8.
Page 21.
Page 21, that we do the recommendations in turn. So, the General Purposes Committee did meet in April to discuss the consultation response and the proposal as to what we should go with the numbers, and that is on the recommendations item A, a clear reduction in the number of members of Fire Authority to 25 down to 20. And I would suggest that we put that forward as a point of debate. Does anybody like to propose the 20 and 25? Councillor Jackson, anybody like to second that? Okay, Councillor Massey, thank you. So, do we have any debate on the subject?
Yes, Chair, I would like to ask for a named vote, please.
Fine. Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, on some of this important, I'm a bit surprised that you're telling us that the other authorities have not consulted their members.
Well,
Have you found out why?
North Somerset, there was no consultation. I understand there was a planned consultation in South Gloucestershire, but Tony Davis has said to me that he wasn't consulted, nor his wife, who is the leader of the Liberal Democrat group on South Gloucestershire. Is that correct, Tony?
Yes. I don't think he's consulted anybody
I
else.
wasn't asked, no.
No, I think he consulted absolutely no one, but put in a
Did you get
An opinion.
No, there hasn't been any consultation.
Bob Gunn?
What are the rules regarding named votes? Because at North Somerset, you have to have a certain level of support and everyone stands up and whatever.
I will look to the man to my left who is flicking frantically through the standing orders to give me the answer to that question, Bob.
Thank you.
Not frantically, Chair,
Not
because
sure.
I'm just rechecking my memory. Which
Oh, really? Sorry.
There is no specific.
No, somebody asked for a name vote,
standing
we
order
agree
on
it.
name
then
votes.
I'm happy, that's it, I'm happy for a name vote.
So it's 6 people.
But what happens if I don't agree?
If somebody wants a name vote, right?
Well, I have to give my name.
Well, at the end of the day, it's the majority decide whether or not there's a name vote. So if necessary, it would put to a vote as to whether or not there should be a name vote.
Okay, well, should we do that now?
Well, we're always piping up about transparency.
Well, you can't get any more transparent than that thing.
I agree with Councillor Jackson. At least one councillor wants a name vote. What's the problem? All the rest of
It's
it.
on YouTube, you can see you.
I've got no problem at all, yes.
Thank you,
Chair, will be fun. That's a name vote, and as you quite rightly say, a name vote for me is a demonstration of where we are, so I'd rather have a name vote.
Moving on.
Mr. Chairman, as a lesson learned piece, could we perhaps then add it to our standing orders to make sure that we adopt a procedure for it?
Please.
So we don't have a debate about it.
Please.
Yes, that's true.
So is there any debate?
No.
Okay, well, shall we?
Well, actually, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I quite like to debate this because I don't agree with Tony. I like it to be slimmer. And the reason I like it to be slimmer, and one of the options we put forward was 10 plus 3, 10 elected members plus 3 appointed members, taking certain expertise, for example, Sari, could be the police commissioner, and one or two other experts, depending on what was required at the time, was to make the committee more agile and more accountable. What used to happen was we had a bigger committee, which took a central fire authority of 25 members, and then in order to make that work more effectively and efficiently, there was a executive committee called the General Purposes Committee. It has different names, but now it's General Purposes Committee. It meets in between fire authority meetings to if you like, make decisions on really important topics very quickly. It couldn't wait until the next authority meeting, but then had to be rubber stamped by the authority meeting. And sometimes, when questioned, we, the authority, weren't allowed to know what happened, what the debate was, what the discussion was. It was just given to us as a fait accompli. And that caused a lot of upset, and it sort of gave the impression there was a bit of sneaky behind the door stuff going on, which I don't think was fair, but it came across that way. It didn't seem to be transparent. I like the idea of the Hampshire model for an authority, which is small and agile and is an executive in its own right, where work streams, such as the one that I'm reading on procurement, which is a start and finish work stream, come and report to the authority regularly, but the decision is made with the authority, not with the work stream, not with these little committees. So Everything could be done by that executive committee. The issues about it are, though, it would require members to spend more time at the fire authority than they currently do. The view on the job specification is to devote 2.5 days a month. Currently, as currently stated, that would clearly need to be greater. There would have to be more of a commitment. Commensurate with that, there should be more pay or allowances for those members because they were taking more responsibility and more days out of their work. So they couldn't earn money in their normal job because they were spending more time. So I think that would be fair, and you could take the money from those councillors that were no longer members and put it into those that were the new members of the smaller group. And the agility and accountability piece, I think, is really important. And each one of those members of the small group would be asked to take on different responsibilities for work streams. It would be very light, quick, and there would be more meetings and completely accountable because everything would be done by that central piece. Whereas now, what we have is a series of different committees, of which the General Health Committee is one, where things happen without necessarily the decision or the knowledge, such as the Employment Committee, get shared around the authority. So my counter-proposal is that there should be 10 plus 8, which incidentally is what the leaders of Bath, South West Shirley and North Somerset would also like.
Could I just, there are other members want to speak, but I think it's important that I put some facts to members as well. Actually, the proposal from the three leaders is slightly different to what you certainly the one they've expressed to me in the meeting with quite specific numbers, was to have 10 plus an indeterminate number of associate independent members with no definition of why we have them in the combination, although we change it since the PCC can join probably from September, October onwards. And so the example of North Yorkshire, which is the only one that I can find of the CFA that have done this, they have got the PCC and the FDU as members. When I actually spoke to one of their officers at the fire conference, I said, well, on that basis, can anybody as a reasonable stakeholder in North Yorkshire join? And their view was, yes, we have no ability to stop them from doing that. On top of that, which actually for me is the more worrying part of it, was the other statement that if it doesn't work very well, we'll add some more on later. So we're going to go for 10. We'll add an indeterminate number of extra independent people who we haven't defined who they are. It could be anybody. And then if that doesn't work well, and what work well hasn't been defined, we will add some more people on. So we're already up to probably 18, aren't we then? Now, I'm not trying to be clever here, Mark, so you may have had discussions, and I'm with Hampshire, I'm not aware of, Nicola, I spoke to Hampshire, you weren't at the meeting either. I had a very long discussion with Hampshire, both the Chief Fire Officer and the Chair of Hampshire, and the Chief was sat next to me while we were having this discussion. And yes, Hampshire have changed and gone down to 10. The idea was to give each of the 10 some form of executive function to head up a point, which actually I was quite attracted to that model, which is why I was very keen to talk to them. So far, they've got one person who is leading up on retained firefighters, and they've allocated no other portfolios. And they've had 12 months to do that. So I'm not convinced that the theory has worked well in practice in Hampshire. It may well work differently elsewhere. The other issue is about the number of meetings, and the chair told me they had 16 meetings a year, effectively for all the 10, of which some are meetings like this open to the public, and some are as what you allude to in terms of the work details. Yeah. So I think the Hampshire model has got some merit in it, but it's very, very, very much a work in progress. And I don't think, for me, I didn't feel comfortable to propose that as being a good model for us, bearing in mind that Hampshire hasn't had the issues that we've had. And the other issue with Hampshire is where they have changed the composition of the fire authority to reflect the electoral balance across the Hampshire area. So, for example, some of the authorities that send have not sent a member of the leading group on that authority. They've sent from a different group to make sure the whole composition of Hampshire politically matches Hampshire voters and councillors. So there is a degree of change in the combination order, at the same time it reflects the political composition of Hampshire, not just saying it's going to be 10. Peter, Abraham.
Thank you. I thank Mark for raising it, because I think to go straight to a vote without a debate on what is, I see, a very important issue would have been unfortunate. As you know, Chairman, I have supported the reduction in the number from 25 for a very long time and suggested it before even the Minister thinks of it. 25 is obviously too large, particularly reflecting on how local government works today. We've all had to reduce in numbers. I think I was on a planning committee. It was over 20 at one time, and now it's 10 or 11. So we do it in different ways. So 25 is too big. I've got a little feeling that 20 is still not enough down. I am worried about that. The research I did, and I did a lot, I've only visited other authorities that were starting to reduce and already reduced, the one that went the very first, and talked to them and got a feel for the thing, and came back and thought that the number for us should be around the 17 mark. I think we have to bear in mind, and we seem to forget this sometimes, the members of the fire authority are councillors and have, from their own authority, and have jobs to do there, some of them quite important ones and time consuming. So you have to make a balance, and to have that 10 as being suggested, which I think is foolish, it just doesn't reflect that, because you would need somebody who was able to give the fire authority full time, which I think would exclude some members who perhaps can make a worthwhile contribution. We have a number on the committee already, haven't we, who are executive members and sit on cabinets. They sort of make the decisions in small numbers. I didn't follow that from Mark Ridley, that argument, because that seems to be what happens in local government today. But the number I would prefer, most certainly, is 17. I think we have to also be very clear that the fire authority should reflect, as close as possible, not only the political leanings of the people that they represent, but the area as a whole. It must be about 1 million people in one way or another that we're representing. And to bring that down to 10 would just not work, in my opinion, and not be able to do the job. I think one of the things that I've always thought about the fire authority is that I was sorry that we didn't get the public attention that we should do on occasions. Very few times did the press turn up and report what was going on, and therefore we never got the profile that perhaps the public could understand the work that was being done. And I think that's something that ought to be addressed, and that's 10, 15, whatever it is. I think that's something that needs to be looked at and done. So I will, not sure if it's 20. I really think that 20 is a little bit high. We've got to shape up and be a fire authority that serves people into the future. And I think those numbers, with a reduction in numbers, all right, the authorities around haven't had a huge reduction in numbers, but I think that there are less members available than there were in 19, whatever it was, we started Avon Fire. Bristol used to be 112 elected for council members, it's huge numbers we used to deal with then. So a very different atmosphere. I do hope that we can be unanimous. I think that is quite important because in doing so, I think we give the confidence to the people that whoever is serving on the fire authority in the years to come reflect what the public really wish to have. So, regretfully, if it's 20 and the majority are going to go for that, I would support that. But I do ask you to consider that perhaps 20 is still a little bit big. 10 out, totally, in my opinion. But 20, I think, needs a little reflection.
Bruce Johnson?
Yeah, before, so Councillor Morris raised earlier that two people were missing from a meeting of 6, and the question were we quorum. We've got 12 missing from 25, so I'm just checking that we're quorum.
9 is the quorum. 9 is the quorum.
No, that's fine. I've got a few things. I mean, going down to 10, I think, you can see how many people are missing today, half, 50%. So if that's happened when we were down to 10, talk about, we're criticising the report of it being an old boys club, all decisions made by just a few people, and now we're voting for an old boys club, to be perfectly honest, because if we went down to 10, there'd be no Liberal Democrats, there'd be no Independents, there'd be no Greens. It would just be a Conservative and Labour authority. It doesn't represent the million, the political makeup of the million people that we're representing. Far fewer people would be making decisions. So I think that's one of the main criticisms within the report, and actually we're going against what the report said. Small members of making the important decisions. The General Purposes Committee, which Mark said that it appears a bit behind closed doors. It's an open meeting, anybody can come. It's one of the committees that we've got. The minutes are always in the firefighter meetings, and no decisions are made at the General Purposes Committee. They always come back to here for discussion, to the main firefighter, for discussion and voting on. So it may appear it, but it's certainly not. The Employment Committee is slightly different, and I do agree, because some very sensitive investigations that have been taking place are within that, and that then needs to come back for more discussion as well. So I can understand Mark thinking for the Employment Committee, because that was 4 of us last time, wasn't it? And we were dealing with a very sensitive case, so I can understand what that is. But the workload for 10, I think, would be too much, because, I mean, my mum, I think the same committees as Alan, roughly, and I think we're on about 4 or 5, is it? And I seem to be down there more than I'm in Bristol City Council at the moment. That would increase. I've got no problem. I'm retired, and I reckon if we went down to 10, it'd be an all boys club, because most of the people with the workload would have to be retired individuals. And looking around, I think it will mainly be a white male firefighter, which I do not like at all. So I think if we went down to 10, you wouldn't have the political balance, you wouldn't have the gender balance, and I don't think you'd have a cohesive firefighting, because there'd be mainly, in my opinion, it'd be white males.
The old and the cold.
Yeah, I think it would be. And the political makeup of just having 2 parties running a fire authority of 1 million people and excluding, whether I disagree or agree with their politics, 3 independent groups, Liberal Democrats and Greens, I think would be a big mistake for us.
Alan Hale indicated next.
Yeah, Chair. Clearly, it's quite a diverse argument, this, and there will be lines drawn as to who believes what and where we should be going. You report that the local authorities talked about, well, we'll start with 10, and if we need to throw a couple more in, well, we can do that, and if we need a few more, we can do that if it doesn't work. could we not approach it from the other side? And I would be happy to propose an amendment to 2A after the figure 20 for the words to read for an initial pilot period of 2 years. And if it's working with 20 then, that's fine. If it's not working, or if it's seen at that level that we could still pare it down, then that could be done, I would suggest, more easily than dragging people off the street. So I don't know whether anybody...
And we have got this big investigation this year.
I agree with that.
I agree.
No, I think actually, at a political timetable level, that's a very sensible approach, Alan, because
I have a note from my wife that says I can be sensible.
She won't believe it.
And it's on YouTube.
Back many notes from different people, yeah.
The advantage of what you're proposing, this is not as if we've spoken about this before,
No, absolutely not.
is that we would have a year then to bed down with a group of many of the existing members, and then actually then we have elections in 3 of the 4 authorities this time next year. So we would have in June 2019 municipal meeting very likely a completely different set of members. So I think actually they would then have a year to see how that works, and then what would be in May 2020, then the Bristol City Council, then it would I think would fit with the timetable. We can see how things have proceeded.
Well, and there's people who the 8-year rule will be kicked in by then, that we won't be here.
Yeah. So
We're there.
shall we just hold that thought? 'Cause I think we probably want to talk on the current debate, Alan.
We have a proposed amendment.
I'll
Yes.
second that.
Okay. So we're going to add that to clause 2A. Shall we vote on that?
Yes.
We'll consider the whole of clause 2A and then continue the debate. We're having votes on the next person
Let's continue with
is
the
Nick Wilson.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, if we look at page 27, there's lies, downlights and statistics, but it's a fact nonetheless. The most popular option is 10. I'd just like to point that out. It's also a fact that 3 of the 4 leaders, until recently all 4 leaders, or the mayor and 3 leaders, wanted the solution that you outlined earlier. So still, as we meet here today, most people wanted 10 when given those 3 options, and 3 of the 4 unitary authorities want 10. Then I wanted to look at the way things are actually working, because the danger of diving into the detail as we're doing and doing point by point is that we miss the wood for the trees. One of my personal experience, validated by a Home Office mandatory inspection, was, as Councillor Jackson alluded to, a very small number of human beings taking all the important decisions. Now, whilst I'm very pleased with the outcome, congratulations, Mick. If we look at the appointment of the new Chief Fire Officer, which is arguably one of the most important decisions this body of human beings should be asked to address, if you're on the main board of a company and you're appointing a new Chief Executive, what could be more important than that? We weren't even informed of who the candidates were who were presented with a solution. So what we have at the moment is small groups of human beings working away in isolation from the main authority, and at best case, we are asked to rubber stamp decisions taken elsewhere. It's not transparent, it's not democracy. If you look at very large corporates, which might be multinational corporations with thousands and thousands of employees, where we wouldn't be a decimal point on their turnover, the main board is no more than 10 people. You have, whether it's elected members or officers, leading work streams, but the important difference from the way we operate today is that they come back to the centre and present a recommendation, and we are allowed to see the data upon which that recommendation is based. Many important decisions, I shan't go into detail because Chris has alluded to the fact that some of there are sensitivities, but important employment decisions have been taken where I've been told that not only may I not influence that decision, I may not know what is in the independent expert's report. I may not read the report. And yet we talk a lot about transparency.
Well, I mean, there is a slight technical issue with this, isn't there, Councillor Wilson? The fact is that you are not on any of the committees. You've been asked to sit on the employment committee if you wish to. So the whole point of this is to get people involved.
I think you're fundamentally missing the point, Chair.
No, I'm not missing the point at all.
The point is, I'm questioning the committee system because if governance is to have real meaning, then this must be the forum in which important decisions are taken, and it isn't.
Well, I don't think there are any decisions other than the employment, which is a fully set out process, and actually exactly the same in all local authorities. I'm not aware that the Bristol City Council or Somerset Council ever debate the employment of the chief executive per se, in terms of the 50-member employment committee.
When it suits you, Chairman, you cite local authorities as a precedent.
We are a local
And when
authority.
it suits you, you say, we're nothing to do with the local
Well,
authority.
we are a local authority in our own right. All
We're
I'm talking
talking about
is
this
the
authority
process.
in isolation. Do we agree that important decisions should be taken by this form of human beings who are elected?
Yes.
Yes, but in relation to the fact that we have to do certain things in relation to employment law.
There is nothing in employment law which means that the main board may not know who the candidates
But
for chief executive are.
but in a board is completely different, isn't it? Because a board cannot lock people up effectively for not paying their tax, whereas we tax people to pay for this. If you do not wish to deal with the company, you withdraw your spending from it. The population of Avon have no ability to influence whether they pay their tax towards our service or not. So it's a totally different accountability system for
Of course
public
they do.
companies.
We're having local elections today, and every member of the public can vote as they see fit. And we
Yes,
get
which is why it's different to a company, isn't it?
And another thing I don't understand is the political makeup argument comes up as a sacred cow repeatedly. It is a fundamental premise of our democratic system that we operate first past the post. There was a referendum at Nick Clegg's insistence on a very, very timid step towards proportional representation, which you seem to be advocating in this document.
No, I'm not.
And it was resoundingly rejected. So the British people spoke and said, we want first past the post, we want, and yet continually party political advantage is used as an argument preserving the status quo. I can see you smiling, Chairman. We all know what this is about.
Well, tell us.
This should be apolitical, and if the right result for the public interest is 10, then let it be 10. Let it not be clouded by personal agenda or party political agenda.
Can I go back on?
Yeah, can you? 'Cause I don't understand.
At the meeting we had with the unitary leaders, I asked them why they wanted 10. And they had no, they wouldn't. I asked for the rationale, and the only person that gave me any reply was Mr. Warren, who said, because I was told to go for 10. That was it. That's exactly what he said. So I then said, are you, Avon is, there's a diverse area of people. I said, if you go to 10, it would just be the Conservatives and the Labour. So I said, we're advocating 20. And in unison, I think it was the North Somerset leader said, so you're talking about, now this is your leader, he said, if you vote 20 in, I won't worry about who I put on the firefighter. I will put people on who at the next meeting in June will vote for 10. So I said, so you're not interested in it being apolitical and representing the people of Avon? He said, I'll put on 2 people, my people, who will vote at the next meeting, they'll raise it, bring it down to 10. Now, ain't that a bit political? And that's coming from your leader.
Yeah.
That is what he said to us in front of the
Can I
other
respond?
three leaders.
Can I respond?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, having a lecture from you, Chris, who's arguably one of the most political people in this room, and I salute you for it, is difficult to take.
I don't see
Okay.
myself as that. to be honest.
But leaving that to one side, we've had an example earlier today from the chairman, and I do admire your due diligence, Don, about Hampshire, where particle political interest was not allowed to triumph, and we had leaders appointing Liberal Democrats and other minority parties based on the individual. And there's something else I will offer
But
everybody
your leader
today.
wasn't going to go down
Is
that
if we get a vote for 10 today, I'm very happy because I know, despite my undeniable charisma, for those who are not listening, I'm very happy to withdraw from this body if we get 10, because I believe that would be in the public interest.
What, for you to resign
Yes.
in the public interest?
There's an
I'm
incentive
not
for
arguing
you,
with,
Chris.
I don't normally argue with you, so I'll resign.
Exactly. Mark Shelford indicated to speak next.
I just want to come back on a couple of points. Chris, your point. I was outlining a different structure where members would be working more full-time and part-time within the fire authority. And then the idea of 16 days a month is not an unacceptable idea of where they would fully engage, because that small body of 10 would be making all decisions, but they would be supported by the work streams that would start and finish with it. Rather in the same way that the procurement committee that I'm running at the moment is working. It is a start and finish committee that then will finish when we produce what we produce. So it's small and it's agile, and it all comes back to that group. As far as the numbers are concerned, the logic behind the numbers, you have a chairman and deputy chairman, and then 5 work stream leaders, plus 3 to make up the numbers in case people were ill, sick, or whatever, to make the quorum. So there is a logic behind that. As far as the aspect of the additional people that were seconded to the authority of concern, I definitely see places there, at least three places. I'm not hard over whether it's fixed to 3 or whether it's flexible, depending on the requirement. For example, we're selling the old headquarters. Would it have been useful to have on the authority, during the period of time, an expert in property to help guide us through this piece, because it is such a fundamental strategic sale of that kit? Now, we have brought in consultants. Of course, they're very good. We've gone through a tender process for those consultants. But wouldn't it be quite useful to have an expert on the committee to have helped us, or rather on the authority, for the period of time of that sale? And there can be many other strategic. So that was it's a complete change of the way we do business. It's not saying we're going to do the same business as before. It's how we do this will change because we will be smaller, and that's why I
Thank you for that clarification, Mark. It's really useful. Tony Davis.
Thank you, Chair. A number of points. If I just take that last one, just to answer Mark. Most of the authorities have anything to do with, if they need an expert, they hire one in. You don't actually need an expert to be part of the organisation, and that goes for most local authorities, although they have people that have a certain expertise, they do hire things like barristers, etc. in. So I think that's a non-argument. Can I just remind people what we're here for? Because we seem to be saying, well, yeah, we'll run it like a business. It isn't a business. We have business ideas. We are here to represent the people of Avon. And therefore, you've got to say, I don't understand, because if you go down to 10, for instance, it's not representative politically, but it's also not representative geographically either. So if you've got a little fire station out in the sticks that maybe we want to close, who's the champion for that area? There should be a councillor that can help that. I find it difficult when you go to 10 without, and we're saying, oh, it shouldn't be political, because I'm sorry, gentlemen, I think that most of that is all to do with politics. It was fundamental, what you want is the PCC in charge. And can I just remind you, the Police and Crime panel is actually 15 people. Not 10, 15. And also, could I also remind you, the chair of that Police and Crime panel has been there in that post for over 8 years. I don't see any move to get rid of him.
He's resigned this year, by the way.
Sorry?
Because he's done his 8 years, it's been handed over.
Right, but he's still on there.
What's the linkage between
Can I finish? I didn't interrupt you. Could you do me the same courtesy? Thank you. We talked about before, they said there was a ruling elite. So you get down to 10, you've got another ruling elite. So sorry, it doesn't compute. And the LA leaders do not choose the numbers on this panel, on this authority. And could I say, their record on consultation has not been that good. I know, for instance, the leader of our council talked to absolutely no one about what he was going to do. But if you look at the report, he put in an opinion. He didn't talk to anybody, including members of his own party. Is that true? Yes. Most of us are used to a cabinet style, the government. That seems what they're... Another ruling elite. I just find it horrendous that you want to do this when the amount of work that we need to do, especially with the changing priorities that are coming up. I don't know how 10 could do it. What you're saying is you get another cabinet that get paid lots of money. They basically a board. They do not become a collection of councillors whose main interest is to represent the people that elect us. Thank you.
Welcome, Chris Windows.
Thank you, Chair. My apologies this morning. I won't go into details, but let's put it this way. The Health Service let me down and let you all down.
Okay. We're on item 8 and we're debating recommendation 2A. And the next person who indicated you wish to speak was Bob Garner.
Brendan,
Thank you, Chairman. A number of points. I agree with many of the previous speakers that there's a certain lack of realism. And I think that in particular, those that advocate 10 members are not being realistic in the context of how we are chosen to be here. I happen to be, as we all are in North Somerset, a member on an outside body, such as the Hinkley Point Site Stakeholders Group meetings and the University of Bristol Court of Governors with 530 members. We are going through an exercise of what on earth do we need representation on some outside bodies. And the Fire Authority is traditionally a job for those who've been around a long time and who need £98 a month pay. So it is theoretically a good idea to have 10 rather like Shell and Persimmon. But the difference is that Shell and Persimmon have hundreds of people in the back office doing all the donkey work, and we don't. And it's not proposed that we would have people investigating this or that or the other subject. And having been briefly a consulting engineer and an expert witness in court with 3 QCs, etc., etc., if you want an expert to advise on the sale of Temple Fire Station and adjoining land, you can choose an expert that will give you the answer you want. Because when you're in court, you have 2 experts giving completely opposite views on what caused the fire, and the judge has to decide which one he believes. And it's the same here. Just because you've got someone who knows a bit about land doesn't mean to say that you can rely on what he says. So you might as well not ask him in the first place. Secondly, or whatever number it is, Councillor Wilton classifies himself as one of the there are lies, damn lies and statistics and you can prove anything cohort. The strictly mathematical statistical point of view is that the public did not vote for 10 members as opposed to 20 members because you cannot split 35 votes for 20 members and 37% for 10 members. It's too close. So the choice of the public is 50% for 10 members and 50% for 20 members, mathematically. Now I agree that there's one person more voted for 10 than did vote for 20. I've never been a fan of consultation, and when we consulted internally on the Hinkley Point C to Sea Bank overhead and underground 400 kV connection, I was a lone voice because I happen to be ex-CGB transmission and know what kV stands for. But the views of everybody were in favour of an impossible situation. Experts did come out of the woodwork, including myself, and we disagreed. A lot of experts said, da-di-da-di-da, it should be on the grounded completely, and I said no, it's a professional, calm, realistic view that we should do what National Grid are suggesting. It's pointless, absolutely pointless. I don't believe myself, and it's a personal view, I don't believe that the public, even 52 of them, have any right or knowledge or ability to recommend a figure that we take that seriously. By all means, let us hear what they think, honestly. But to take a decision based on what the public think, I think is naive. We should make a decision, and I think the decision, as Councillor Abraham so sensibly said, should be above 10, and possibly, for the sake of appearances, less than 25, and I fully agree with his suggestion of 17. I also agree with Alan Hale's, Councillor Hale's approach that we should be a little flexible on this and recommend a number, and it doesn't matter too much what the number is because it's not going to be carved into stone forever, a number that can be adjusted in a couple of years. I think that is an excellent suggestion, and the number that I would think of is being sensible at this stage, at this moment in time, is the 17 proposed.
Okay, Brenda Massey.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, Councillor Garner's made one of the points I was going to make, which is that statistically the difference between one person saying they wanted 10 as opposed to 20 is so close that really shouldn't consider that. It's just ridiculously close. I also like the suggestion from Councillor Hale about having a period of time, starting with 20, reviewing it after that. And in fact, I'd even want to go a bit further and say, can we not be a little bit more gender balanced than we are at the moment? It is very much, I'm afraid, older white men, and there are a lot of women around who could bring a lot of contributions to this board.
We do look older than we actually am.
Tony Davis meant to apologise to the women and the men.
I just think we should be really seriously about how the gender balance needs to be not only between that but with other ethnic minorities as well. However, given here the open contributions going on behalf. I really think
Just will stop a second, Brenda, until the helicopter's gone.
it's obviously
The plane's winning, Brenda.
are all councillors, we do have a lot of responsibility outside of here. A lot of us chair committees, and to be honest, if we're really interested in belonging to the Fire Authority and want to put in the time required, to go down to the smaller number of 10 would just make it impossible to balance our work on our own council, which after all has sent us here, as well as the Fire Authority. So I'm absolutely in favour of going for 20 members, at least initially, to see how that works.
I've got Sarah Pomfret, who hasn't yet spoken, in case she'd like to.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Chair. When I first became a councillor, we, the Conservative Party in South Gloss, had a meeting to decide what committees to go on. And I was told by several people who had been on the council for a few years, including somebody who is on the Fire Authority, don't go on more than one committee. Let somebody else do all the work. And that seemed to be a kind of general mentality. I wanted to know how the council works, so I actually went on, I think it was 9 committees in that first 4 years. I know, I was stupid. But once I know how things work, but there were people that only went on one committee, because golf was better. It was apparently golf. I mean, I have cut down on the number of committees, and my workload at home has increased at the moment. So I kind of think that it would be difficult for people such as myself who aren't actually retired to maintain the number of meetings and put the full effort in if other people aren't going to bother. We've only got half the numbers turned up today because the rest, for whatever reason, didn't make it. In South Gloss again, we have a scrutiny committee and they have subgroups. So there's a larger committee, was it 13, 15, something like that? 13. 13 people, and they have subgroups to look into tasks and finish little, short things. And I'm not on the scrutiny committee, but I am on some of the subgroups because they couldn't get enough members, other members, to go on the subgroups. So they had to look, for other councillors outside of the scrutiny committee to go on the groups. And we can't do that here. Once we've got down to 10 or whatever, you've got to do everything. And I think that would be too much of a burden for everything other than retired white men to do. So we jumped on that bandwagon. I think, we have one gentleman here today who is not white, and I'm glad he's turned up. I did hear on the radio the other day. The other
president.
the other members of the
You still got the ball.
There are a few females here.
There are 2 ethnic women who have not turned up.
Yeah, okay, so they have managed to turn up. There are a few other, white women here. But, we're not a very diverse group anyway, and to cut people out from being part of it, I think would not be a good thing. We need to be as diverse as possible to allow people to be included. So I think cutting it down to 10 would cut a lot of people out, and it would cut out a lot of political parties as well, including possibly the independents. So I'm not entirely sure about 20, but I definitely don't want 10. I'm happy with Peter's suggestion. I agree with Peter and pretty much all of what he said, that something like 17, 18 would possibly be a good start. But if people want 20, as per the papers, then I would be happy to go on with 20, against what apparently my leader is saying. But then he didn't ask me, so I don't see why I should follow his instruction, even if it does get back to him. I will tell him myself.
Right, I've got Catherine Morris next.
Thank you. Chair, this isn't about the numbers, it's simply about the make-up of the authority. If people can't commit the time, they shouldn't be here, they shouldn't be members of this authority. If you know the amount of time it takes and you feel that you cannot commit that time, you don't have it spare, don't sit on it, stand down. Let somebody else who is available to do the work take your place. And secondly, I know that we should appear to be representative, but surely it's the best person for the job, not necessarily a politically correct authority. Thank you.
I've got Afsal Shah, who hasn't spoken yet, has indicated he'd like to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I want to follow after Catherine and just pick up your point about critical correctness, putting that to one side. I think that we are here to serve the general populace and we must reflect the people and the constituencies that we represent. And when we talk about, for example, the proposal for 10 people, and we say that Avon Fire Authority represents a population of 1 million. Well, according, because I sit on the police and crime plan, and according to our figures on the police and crime plan, the force covers 1.7 million people. Now, if you're talking about just straight 10 people, that is nearly, so 170,000 people. That is almost twice the size of the biggest political constituency in the country, which, as I understand it, is Bristol West, which is 90,000. So, in effect, who actually has that time to offer to actually attend these meetings? And then, if only 5 people turn up, given that only half the people have turned up today, is that realistic? And I think, certainly, if you look at Bristol, in terms of changing demographics, I represent one of the most diverse wards in Bristol, Eastern Ward, and the fact is that in Bristol, 1 in 3 school children is from a BME community. That includes East European communities as well. And of course, it's not just about Bristol, but I'm just saying that, you know, if we do look around, we do want to ensure that we've got a diverse representation. You only have to look at the damage that was done with the report findings that came out of the Home Office report and the concerns raised there. And I'm glad that we're getting a grip. We're working very hard. I sat on the DICE committee, and there is a lot of good work taking place, and there's a lot of good firefighters out there. The vast. In fact, I would say firefighters put their life at risk, and we must commend that. And one of the big issues where I live, in Easton, and the neighbouring area, is the high-rise firewalls. Yeah, people often on the doorstep, they talk about what happened with Grenfell. And if we seek to cut down the numbers, those people, when they're asking you directly, what are you doing about the cladding in high-rise blocks, especially in the more congested parts of Bristol? Well, with all due respect, the only response that I can get is by email. In fact, when you tell them that you sit on the committee and you raise these issues, people are far more reassured. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. And just to finally pick up on Chris's point, yes, thank you, Chris. He actually let me out of jail today. It was that I was, I said to him that I need to come to this meeting just to make up the numbers.
But surely Councillor Sharvey, you are the best person for the job.
Shouldn't it be through
and
the
you
chair?
will be selected. Excuse me, through the chair.
Neil Butts.
Thank you, Chair. Picking up Councillor Morris's point, suggests that people should not agree to stand if they couldn't afford the time. Well, in an ideal world, I absolutely agree, but there's not an ideal world. It's been pointed out by several people already. Only half the people made it this morning. And looking back on past committee meetings, there was one recently where there were half a dozen people absent. There was another one that failed to operate at all because there wasn't a quorum. We've got to be very cautious in this. We've also got to think, as has been rightly suggested, about the balance of men and women, ethnic minorities. We have to propose a diverse body to make sure all points of view are reasonably represented. I think there could be a case for going for 17 or 18, I think certainly not 10, but I think at this point it's too early to do that. And I don't always agree with Councillor Hale, but I have to say I think he's hit the nail on the head on this occasion, that we need to be safe, not sorry. Let's go for 20, and then we'll have a review in 2 years' time, come back, maybe reduce a bit. But just as a general point that maybe hasn't fully come out earlier in this debate on the numbers issue, don't forget all the councils are reducing as well. We're about to go down from 65 to 59. That may not seem an awful lot, but for example, my current ward, which I have to look after 6 parish councils, the proposal is that's going to go up to 8 parish councils. All this is going to be chipping away at our availability. So I think 20 with the review is, for today, the correct decision. Thank you.
So far, I'll let Chris Windows indicate you wish to speak, and all the people who then indicate they wish to speak have already done so. So I'll go to Chris first.
Thanks, Chair. My problem with the pressure to reduce down to 10 is that last year we had an inspection by the government inspector. One of the points that he made quite strongly was that decisions were being made, in his view, by a very small number of people, and that wasn't the way to go. And now this year we're being told decisions should be made by a small number of people, 10. Now, so far I've not been given any real reason for this pressure to go down to 10. I've not heard anything that has convinced me that it's anything other than a move by certain parties. I don't like that. To be able to do the job properly here, I do believe that, yes, we can reduce the numbers, but not dramatically down to 10. I cannot see that working at all. It's very difficult. If you're a committed councillor, and I believe I am, I work very hard. I work very hard as far as my council duties are concerned, and this is another of my council duties. I feel it's an honour to be a member of this committee, but I also feel that we need to have enough people to make sure that the decisions are properly scrutinised and properly carried out. And that is why I think, and I voted for it on the committee, 20 seems to be a sensible start. So that's where I'd like to go on it.
Well, is there anybody that hasn't yet spoken who wishes to speak?
I would like to wind up on my proposal.
Okay, fine. Well, so I've an indication of 4 members who wish to speak again, which the first, which is Peter Abraham.
Thank you. I'm slightly getting worried because we heard earlier that the meeting by Chris Jackson that the leaders made no justification for having 10. Quite frankly, I'm disappointed. I haven't got any justification for 10, 20, 50. I thought we'd have a report on how we would operate with the numbers. And many suggestions, good suggestions, are coming forward of how we might as an authority work with a different set of numbers. I think that's quite important. Now, all right, we haven't got that. Therefore, I would be prepared. Can I say there's an amendment on the table, so my ruling is correct, sort of thing. I can't put an amendment to that dispense with. I'd be happy to move the 17. But if we accepted the motion of Alan's, which was to have a review in 2 years' time, I'd be happy to go along with 20, because I think that is sensible. And I think in that period of time, we should be working out a proper report for 2 years' time of exactly how that is operating realistically. We'll know the type of members that are being sent to a broad degree, we'll know how the committee structure can work, and we'll know how the whole thing is working. Can I also say, we've got to be very careful about this representation rule. Yes, we are here to represent, but not our constituents, nor our authority. We're here as able authority members representing everybody within that area. I don't say, well, it's going to affect my electorate and I'm sent by the people of Stoke Bishop. That doesn't apply. We are here for the whole authority. And I must remind people that we are, as a fire authority, responsible for all non-operational matters. We are responsible for the budget. We are responsible for monitoring what happens. We're also responsible, and I agree with Nick Wilton, for the appointment of senior officers. Not only the chief fire officer, but I think the deputy, or the clerk, and the senior sort of deputies as well. So that's quite a wide remit that we are responsible for. And we are responsible to make good sound judgments and decisions on behalf of Avon Fire and Rescue. That's the job. It's much more than that representative role. And I've always felt that I come here to try to make the best decisions for Avon Fire to serve the whole of the population. So I think we want to be careful what we're doing. I think that 20 would, in actual fact, not be my first choice, but that's a little bit immaterial. I think it would be a step in the right direction. I would argue that 25 is too many. I'd also say to Councillor Morris, I think it's a bit clever to try to say if they can't come or can't make it, they should resign. Things happen. The authorities call you into very important meetings. We've got executive members here. What do they do? You know, I think, but can I say, of being on quite a while, attendance has never been a problem. It started to pick up a little bit when we changed the subcommittee level. In actual fact, before, the fire authorities were very, very well attended, and one or two apologies would be the order of the day, and sometimes we had 100% compliment. So there was real attention by members to come. But of course, what they were seeing, and this is completely different to what happens now in local authorities, every decision that was taken by that much criticised small group came to the fire authority for decision, every decision. And they had opportunity, and we did, didn't we, Chris, change those decisions many times. Both parties would do it, or all three parties would change them. So there was clear democracy in my book. So I think the way that we organise ourselves, what sort of committees we're going to have, is going to be important with the 20 members and how we use them. Therefore, that's why I would be more than happy, and I think we should start thinking of winding up and going for that motion or amendment of the 2 year. Then I think we'd be freer to vote on what numbers we would like.
Councillor Brendan Massey is actually heading up a working group in terms of looking at our standing laws and constitution that will be working over the next few months to come forward with proposals exactly as you described to. So thank you for that. I have Nick Wilson.
Good. I'll try and be as brief as I can. First of all, I agree with Nick Wilton in words I never thought I'd hear from your lips, Councillor Oakley.
I actually said it at the last meeting as well. I don't know. I have seen the doctor.
So we minimise the self-praise.
Right. The ethnicity in attendance and the politically correct message from Councillor Massey, I'm not scoring points here because I think it's the best person for the job. And the reason I like and respect Councillor Shah is everything to do with who you are and nothing to do with your ethnicity. We have 2 ethnic minority women, and I can't remember the last time I saw Councillor Janner. So let's get real here. If we're going to step up to the plate, one thing we can all agree on in this forum is if you are on the authority, you attend. I've missed a very important meeting for my company to be here because I recognise the importance of this decision. The next thing is chicken and egg and cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance, for those of you who don't know, is a term used by psychologists when we hold 2 mutually exclusive versions of the truth in our heads at the same time. One of my colleagues said letting the people decide is dangerous. Isn't that what underpins the fundament of our democracy? So we are told, on the one hand, that we need all these councillors to man all the committees that we have, but we've just had the point...
It's not man.
Okay, whatever. We need so many councillors because otherwise there won't be enough people to go around on committees. And yet we've had the most important decision, i.e. who is going to be the next Chief Fire Officer, very happy with the outcome, as I've already said, which was taken in splendid isolation from everybody who was not on the employment committee. So I think what we need to do is tighten up, and before us now, there was a subset of human beings taking more important decisions elsewhere. That's what the Home Office Inspector highlighted. What I'm saying is that if we have 10, then all the important decisions get taken here. Before, how big was the Special Purposes Committee? 3, 4, 5?
5.
5. So we're talking about 10.
6.
So it's really not a numbers game. The third point is justification. Councillor Windows and others have said there was no justification. Do I have to remind the people around this table that we are talking about, we are the only fire authority in the history of the fire service in this country which has been the subject of a mandatory Home Office inspection. And we are now talking about voting about reducing by 5 with a 2-year trial period when our governance has been in total and utter meltdown. This isn't a minor incident, this is Chernobyl. We've had the Chief Fire Officer suspended, we've had the Deputy Chief Fire Officer suspended, there's been other investigations ongoing. Isn't it time to wake up and smell the coffee and deliver radical change, rather than these teeny-weeny baby steps?
Right, Tony Davis.
And the final point is, where does power reside? That is the fundamental question here, and that is what governance means.
Yes.
If I'm asked to rubber stamp a decision taken by the committee, and that's where I disagree with Councillor Abraham, is all important decisions were taken elsewhere. Whatever else anybody around this table thinks of me, I couldn't be accused of being ambiguous about my opinions. They were taken here as fait accompli, and at best, we rubber stamped decisions taken elsewhere. That must change.
You should sit on some committees.
Tony Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want another go at the numbers game. Actually, I would like some clarification. I listened to what Alan Hell said, and I think there's a way forward there. It seems very sensible. My only problem is, and this perhaps is more a question to Guy, bearing in mind that a lot of authorities, people are put in the fire authority for 4 years, and there's certain sort of issues about that. I just wonder how those issues can be resolved. I'm not against what he says, I just think that we need to understand how it's going to work. Alan.
Good question.
It is as simple as this, is the authority makes a determination on its numbers, it passes those numbers to the entry authorities, and they're obliged with a combination to supply those members. So the fact that a member may have been appointed for 4 years is irrelevant in the context that if the fire authority changes its numbers.
Okay, that's fine. I wanted that clarification. Thank you.
Back to the authorities and they have to be.
I've got Brendan Massey, we're going to Brendan Massey first, Alan, if that's okay with you.
Thank you, Chair, because I'd like to respond to what Councillor Wilson said just now about my comments. I would like to make it clear that I was not referring to any current members of the authority, so please don't pick on individual people. I was referring to a future state where I hope we would have good representation from all councillors who've been elected. So I find it rather offensive you actually naming individual members of this authority in your comments. Thank you.
Well, if somebody's elected and they never come, Councillor Massey, irrespective of their ethnicity, why do we have
You refuse to sit on a committee by just
Sorry, point of order, Chair. Most of us have indicated we wish to speak, and you've invited us to speak. Can we actually observe that nicety?
Well, I think that point is right. The last person I've got to speak is Alan Hale.
I just want to wind up on my proposal of the amendment. As I say, that there are probably diverse lines as to who wants 10, who wants 20. Some may not want change. 2-3 years ago, we were probably in a bad place. In my opinion, not everybody will share that. But I truly believe, and I know not everybody will share this view, I truly believe that as a result of that report, this fire authority is turning itself around. It might be slow, it might be fast, I don't know, that will be a matter of opinion, but I do believe that there is a change of attitude, a change of understanding, a change of aspiration. So I think with that already in tow, I think to take a knee-jerk reaction to reducing it to 10 so that we can say, look, we made this massive step. Well, we've already made steps. 2 or 3 people, 4 or 5 people have already left the authority. Some of us who would love to remain on it will be leaving in May of next year. So those changes are being made. I think, and I would because I'm proposing it, but I think that to go to 20 but not carve it in stone, allow ourselves the opportunity, or those who will be here, to actually positively look at how we are operating as an authority with less members, and look at, perhaps through Brenda's work, how it may be remodelled. I don't know, but I just think it's a massive knee-jerk reaction to go down by 15 members without actually having a model on the table to say this is how it will happen and this is how it will work. So I would just reinforce my proposal that after the figure 20 in 2A, we insert for a pilot period of 2 years.
Okay.
And then to reconsider.
Well, thank you, Alan. That was a really great summing up. Thank you very much for that. We appreciate that. So, shall we go towards a vote? The first thing we have to vote on, I guess, is Alan's amendment. Did you propose it, Alan, didn't you? And
Chris
seconded it. Are we in favour of Alan's amendment? Any against? 3. Any abstentions? Okay. So we now go on to the amended 2A, and I'm assuming from that, members, that we've accepted Alan's amendment, that we are going to approve 2B as well, because that would not
No,
work.
we've got to vote on the amendment.
Yes, yes. So on item 2A, as we voted to amend, do we want to go for a named vote, or we have to do a show of hands?
No.
Okay. So, are we all, do you want to read out the...
Yes, so it is 2A as amended by Councillor Hale's amendment, so it will be a reduction to 20 for a pilot period of 2 years. So you either vote for that, or against. So just please say for or against when I shout out your surname. So Abraham,
For.
Barber,
For.
Butters,
For.
Davies,
For.
Davis,
For.
Garner,
For.
Hale,
For.
Jackson,
For.
Massey, Morris,
Against.
Pomfret,
For.
Sharp,
For.
Shelford,
Against.
Wilton,
Against.
Windows.
For.
That's 12 for and 1, 2, 3 against.
Okay, thank you, members. So we've gone to item 2B, which I'm assuming from what we've just voted on, we are happy to amend as of June 2018. So do I have a proposal for that? Agreed. Councillor Shelford, seconder? Councillor Hale, so all in favour, please?
We have an amendment, or was it just the first one?
Just the first one.
Or is this-
All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Are you abstaining, Tony?
I think I'll abstain, yeah.
Okay.
I fail to see the logic.
Right, okay. So on to item 2C. In the debate, there's been a lot of questions about the ability of members to come along.
No, just, we, carry on, I just want to speak on that.
Yeah, fine. And we put together a new standing order to reflect that, so that we ask those who don't contribute to go. I would like to propose, first of all, a very slight amendment to item 1.7A3. In the third line, I would like to delete the expression "or one of the unitary authorities."
Sorry, Chair, which was that? What were you?
On item 2C, over page 22, the first one top, paragraph 1.7A3, I'd like to propose amending that paragraph by deleting the phrase "or one of the unitary authorities." Because I don't think we have any ability to influence that. It should be entirely within our ownership to do that, shouldn't it? So I don't know if I find any support for that very minor amendment.
That's fine.
Mr. John Barber and Chris Windows. But shall we go to Chris Jackson indicating he wishes to speak
Yeah,
on it?
it's just on 1781, where a member falls for a period of 3 months from the date. I'm happy with that, but I would like to add, because I think that we were going back a while with Peter, we try to bring in, if they don't turn up for 2 consecutive meetings, like firefighting meetings or the subcommittee they're on, that the leaders, group leaders within the authority should be made aware. And if it turns out for 3 meetings, because, I mean, last month we had 4 meetings there. So if we go 3 months, I mean, you could have missed, I mean, it wouldn't have happened for Nick because he don't sit on any committees, but we could have missed a month and had 4 meetings. So, you know, that's a lot of meetings you missed in just 4 weeks. So I would like that 2 consecutive meetings, if they miss 2 consecutive meetings, a group leader within the authority should be made aware, and if it's 3 consecutive meetings, the leader of their unitary authority should be made aware. If that's acceptable, because it does seem a lot, just 2 and 3, but we have had people, as Nick has said, that have not turned up when they should be.
Okay, so I have to ask Guy for a legal opinion on that first.
Yes, I mean, I can amend the wording to, if that's what the authority wants, I can amend the wording to encompass that within the standing order. So it would be, in 7.A1 it would be 2 consecutive meetings to which they should have attended, and in 3 it would be 3.
Okay. So, do we find a second for that?
Can we have a discussion first?
Well, I'm trying to discuss, I'm not going to vote on it again, Mark, I just want to say, do you want to support Chris Jackson's amendments?
There are comments to be made, yes.
For Brendan Massey, so we've got to, so, okay, so debates on the amendment.
Well, sure.
Okay, well, yeah, go on.
My issue is, could we say a period of 3 months or 2 consecutive meetings? I know officially we're not allowed to debate the amendment, but it would seem sensible because there might be, summer gap where there were no meetings, etc. So I think all would be more helpful. Political group leaders within the authority, you all know my aim. My aim is to make this apolitical, and so we don't have a group structure to this. So we work on the model of the police and crime panel, which does not have any group structure to it, which I think is much more representative and free, rather than having this slightly archaic group structure within the authority, because I think you hear about firefighting and all that politics. And so I assume the political group leader referred to here was not within the fire authority. It was within their own unitary authority.
Yeah. What is the person within the fire authority?
No, I took that to mean like our mayor or
the unitary authority.
That's what I took.
That's the next clause. That's the 17.782. That's when it gets escalated beyond this group.
No, I don't agree with that. I read that as the unitary authority, as if I've read that, I apologise.
Could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Well, if clearly there are ambiguities in here that people aren't understanding, is this one, or are these clauses, or what you like, are they vital today, or can they be looked at again to iron out any ambiguities and then brought back to the next authority meeting? Perhaps bring more clarity to it. I don't.
Yeah, agree. You want to get this YouTube video and show it to your wife? That's twice today.
It is.
Yes. I mean, that's all very well to defer, but part of the reason for putting it in today was to try and do a raft of measures at the same time, which it's up for us to discuss that. It's just a question of what's the steer, because I think the issue, for example, you raised, Chris, was suddenly going out to the unitary authority political leaders. Is actually in a political group on Avon Fire Authority, you could then go to 4 or 5 different leaders, couldn't you? So it's just the coherence and the response back. So
I suggest that before it comes to full fire, it goes to the audit and performance committee to discuss, and they can bring a paper to a firefighter.
I would be happy to pass this to Councillor Massey's group.
Is that seem rational?
Yes. Peter, did you want to discuss it?
I did. I've been indicating
yes,
sorry, at the very beginning.
My apologies.
Yes.
I don't support any of these amendments, quite frankly. I don't see the need for them. They're not mandatory. I would normally want us to have things of this nature if they're outstanding orderable, so that they can be acted upon. Could anybody tell me what will happen if you write to the leader of X council and say your member hasn't turned up to the last 4 subcommittees? It achieves nothing. On one hand, we're saying, oh, we appoint, we are the fire authority, we do it, and here we are. I don't agree with Mark about the conclusion. I have no problems with group leaders, but I don't see that they have a relevance in our, what I call, our standing orders. So I don't believe these are correct. And what happens in a lot of cases is that an authority is informed of the attendance record of all their members. So if there is so that they know exactly what their members are doing. Because we do that.
Well, it's very interesting you raised that point, Peter, because this was raised at the Independent Improvement Board, I actually sent the numbers out for the quarter ending March the 31st, I suppose, in the beginning of April, and they had no knowledge previously of the attendance of their members at our meetings. So I don't think we can...
Can I just finish? Because I'd like to make my point, if I may, please. I also see that in 17A2, they were going to invite the leaders to remove that member. Now, I thought that was the point that was got me and the two vice chairmen into problems if we did this. Now we're sort of saying it was a recommendation that we're going to, and I wouldn't have done it in that way at all. So I really don't understand this. I don't see what point it has. But more importantly, I don't know what we can do about it if those leaders just write back and say, hard luck, can't be bothered, or whatever.
What we said,
I would rather have a set of standing orders that are actionable by this fire authority. That is what standing orders should be about, and that we should adhere to.
We can't say we don't want people to come, Peter. Very much as we would love to.
I appreciate that, that's what I'm saying.
We can't say go away. Nick Wilson.
It's ironic, Councillor Abraham, given the history, Peter, which we don't need to go into now. But the fact is, we do not have the power to remove disagreeable presences from this forum, and Councillor Massey found it offensive when I mentioned people who don't have a great attendance record. If this was a play, it would be much ado about nothing, because we do not have the credentials. We've got some political groupings here who, after the reorganisation, will only have one member in it. Do we need to write to that member to tell them that they didn't attend their own meeting? This is an exercise in absurdity. So, whilst I understand the aspiration, which is to get people to attend, you know, if you sign up to the authority, particularly if there's a reduction in numbers, you need to take your duties seriously. I mean, Councillor Jackson has scored several points about my non-attendance for committees.
Only found out today.
I went to a committee, decided it was a waste of time, didn't go again. But here I am today because it's important.
Sarah Pomfret.
Thank you, Chair. On the first 17A.1, if we're going to have something like that, I would prefer to take out political bit and just have the clerk speak directly to the member that isn't turning up.
That's all right.
And see if there's a reason. Because
Yes,
sometimes there is a reason. Some political bit. And I mean, the second part, 17A.2, on South Gloss, we have several times over my period there. We have a 6 month, we have to attend a meeting within 6 months. But if somebody is ill or something, then we have it's at the end of a council meeting, we have a waiver where we can give extra time. So that sometimes there are reasons where you cannot turn up, and obviously we can't put subs in. So I quite like the idea of the members' authority being spoken to if they haven't turned up, to find out why and see if there's a reason and perhaps give them an extension. But yeah, we even without teeth, I think we ought to at least warn people, warn the leaders that the person they've put in isn't attending and see if there's a reason. And you know, perhaps if it was a strong enough question, then perhaps the member's authority, you know, unitary authority, would consider changing the person for somebody else that might attend. I don't really have a problem with that. It's just kind of the way it's worded, I think, sometimes.
Paul Garner.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Whilst I note your previous comments, I really don't think that we're going to get a fully agreed set of rules at this meeting, and I do recommend that it, or do suggest that it be remitted to a future discussion.
Agreed. I've got Alan Hale and Tony Davis who together wish to speak. Alan, do you want to go first?
Yeah. When I became councillor, my understanding was that you attended every council meeting unless there was, a dire reason why you couldn't. And so for the best part of 12 years, I booked my holidays around council commitments. The same, I would suggest, applies to this group. I mean, we are given a role, we are given an allowance. Now, we pay the allowance, not the authority. So perhaps Brenda might consider writing into those rules that if the attendance isn't met as we will ultimately agree, that the allowance is removed. So why should somebody continue to receive the same allowance as me when I'm coming to, as Chris was saying, 4 meetings in a month, and somebody else might not be coming to any meetings in 6 months? So I would have thought we have, if no other control, financial control over that person. If they still choose not to come, having had the allowance removed, well, essentially, so what? If that's how they want to run it, their life in relation to a responsibility that they've been given, well, they have to live with their own conscience. But I don't want them living with their own conscience, earning the same allowance that I'm earning when I'm actually doing the business.
Right, I've got several people who indicate they wish to speak. I've got Tony Davis, I've got Chris Jackson, I've got Afzal Shah, and I've got Mark Shelford. There's been a suggestion made that we remit this item back to Brenda Massey's committee to come back with proposals to the main fire authority for consideration. So I would like to ask the speakers who've indicated they want to say something to indicate when they're speaking, please, guidance to Brenda and committee members as to what they would like considered in that discussion rather than debate on the substantive motion now. So is that right, Tony Davis?
Yes, Chair. Alan actually has said virtually what I think. We haven't got, as Peter quite rightly says, if we haven't got any power, what's the point in having it? And the power, quite rightly, we have is say, well, if you're not turning up, you ain't getting paid.
Absolutely right.
You know, I do believe there needs to be a system. I mean, certainly in our council, you can apply for leave of absence through to ill health and all that sort of thing. And I believe that we should do that via the clerk. It should be internal. So if someone's ill or has to, breaks their leg or can't do it, then they can actually say to the clerk, look, I'm sorry, I can't make this. Yeah? That I would like Brenda to consider. Thank you, Jackson.
Yeah, mine is that this, if I want to first to get to be done, this bit to remit after Brenda's group, and if any member of the fire authority would like anything to be discussed at the audit committee, to email to Guy, so that opens it up to every member, not just people who are here. Email it to Guy for that committee to consider views and then bring reports back. So I think we should just get on with it.
Okay, Afzal Shah.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to echo what Alan has said. I think that the voter apathy being such an important issue, we're going to bring politics into it, but people are already very cynical, and once they find out that you attend meetings and you actually do the work which you do, that's fine, but if you're not attending meetings, you're still getting your allowances. With all due respect, I find that very, very disingenuous. So I think we should be using that leverage internally, and there should be a suspension of allowances for members who have no genuine reason for non-attendance.
Mark Shelford.
Very quickly, completely agree that it should go to your committee, Councillor Massey. I think that would be excellent. I think within your committee you should consider the escalation process of a gentle word in the ear, then a bit more of a loud word in the ear, and then perhaps reduction of allowances. I think that's a very sensible thing please also consider very carefully 1.7A5, which is the common sense piece of the monitoring officer. There may be very valid reasons that somebody hasn't been able to do it, and the monitoring officer will be told and says, look, just for now, it's fine, crack on. And I think that's an important clause that we should have, notwithstanding everything else we've discussed.
Right, fine. So we are going to defer item to refer to the ADC. Item 2D, which is on the expectation of members, and the member role description.
I think that should be the same.
Are we happy that deferred to Brenda's
Yes.
as well? Okay, and the member role is same place, yes?
Can we just discuss the member role description? Because I think this is a really good document, and a lot of work has been put into this to look at it. And I just give Councillor Massey a steer if we're going to give it to her commission. Do you think people should be giving a steer now if they pick up on it? Because I reckon it's a really good start for 10.
And Massey.
Can I suggest that, I've listened to the discussions that are going on, it would be really helpful if members have points they wanted the committee to consider, if they would send them in to guide on the next point. Because I think there may be things that people have, for whatever reason, haven't been able to come today to discuss. And also, you know what it's like for everybody, you suddenly think, oh, I should have said this as well. So if we could ask people to write in with any comments they might consider, I think that would be a good way of doing it.
I'd like to make a comment really, because the way we're approaching this highlights for me one of the absolutely fundamental problems with the way this authority is run. There are those of us here, admittedly the minority, although it didn't go my way, who are opposed to the committee system and have expressed that vocally today. And we've now got a motion where we will be compelled to sit on at least one committee. I am volunteering for the employment committee, by the way. So if you want to appoint me to that, Chris and I can have some other
happy to see you on it.
But I think if we fundamentally disagree with the committee system, to then be compelled to attend the committee, the other point I've made is there's an irony, particularly to hear it from Councillor Massey, who was offended by me highlighting members who have a very poor attendance record.
Excuse me, it was names I was objecting.
That we cannot discuss members' inability to attend because they're not here. Is it only me that spots an irony there? I cancelled a really important meeting for my company to attend here because I think this is important. And we can't discuss non-attendance because people couldn't make it.
We were happy to discuss
Have I missed something?
I was talking about naming people.
Well, Councillor Jam doesn't come, we all know it.
Well, you don't go to anything.
No, I don't, because I've said to you, I don't believe in the committee system. When I attended the audit committee meeting, the first motion was that we sign everything off as hunky-dunky, downstream of the Home Office report.
That's not factually accurate. Right, so we have asked the AGC to look at item 2D. Do we wish to debate item 2E on the member role description? Councillor Shelford has pointed out what a good document it is. I believe it also a very good document. That came from a joint discussion with members to produce that document. Are we happy to accept that? Because the whole point to it is that we want to send that to the unitary authorities so that when they send the members for our June meeting, that document can be passed to members to know what's expected of them. So I prefer we could accept that now, and that could be then sent onto the unitary authorities, rather than people coming along and saying, oh, I didn't realise I had to do that.
I'm happy with that. And could it say a good document to be annually
updated?
So what are we being asked to agree to?
Approve the proposed member role description 2E.
Page 40.
Page 40. So Chris, are you happy to propose that?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Mark, second that. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Right. That is item.
Just for clarity, Chairman, I agree with Appendix 3, and I agree with Mark's comments that this is an accurate reflection of what we should do. What I don't do is, I don't want to be misremembered later, is that I'm signed up to the committee system, because I don't think that's an effective way of looking at government. We'll just have to disagree with that.
Okay, right.
It's fine. If you want to go on it,
Unless it's the point of order, please, Tim. I'm going to proceed on to item number 9.
Could I say that if I join the golf club, I abide by their rules? If you're part of this authority, you abide by the rules, and if you don't like it, then leave.
Right, so the
Golf clubs are not a good example.
Yes.
Go back to golf.
Rather like tennis.
Sorry, you said something, Councillor Wood?
I said you said this wasn't a business. It's not a golf club, Councillor Davis. And democracy means speaking about your beliefs and changing things from within through
and
the
accepting your vote.
Okay, so we now move on to item number 9, which is the date of the next meeting, which will be our annual meeting.
Democracy, I agree with him.
That's and then take now we come on to item 10, which excludes the press and public. Resolve that the public may be excluded from the meeting on the following items of business on the grounds that they contain exempt information pursuant to Schedule 12A Part 1 of the Local Government Act 1972, in accordance with Schedule 12A Part 2, Paragraph 10 of the Local Government Act 1972. The public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Do I have a proposal for that, please?
Yeah.
Councillor Jackson, a seconder. Councillor Barber, any all in favour?
Chair, could I?
Oh,
All right, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question
Oh, go on.
on 9, item 9, the date.
Oh, yes.
I mean, other than the fact that I had to get here very early this morning to buy Councillor Shelford a coffee and myself a bacon roll.
Don't tell anybody.
In some respects,
You declared that.
I found it quite refreshing having this meeting in the morning rather than sitting here thinking
Traffic.
4 o'clock, it's going to take me an hour and a half, 2 hours to get home.
The clerk has indicated to me there is a survey going out after this meeting for future meeting dates. And I think quite a lot of members have indicated that Friday afternoon is not the most ideal time for meetings. So I think we are all of the one that we need to change it. There'll be a survey trying to find preferential dates. I think at this late stage, I'd be reluctant to change
Oh,
the
no,
date.
but
Moving forward, we do need to change the dates and times.
Yeah.
After June.
After June.
Can I just say that, not to send it around now, but to send it around after you know who the people are who are going to sit next time round, because it might not be the same authority.
We talk again, cognitive dissonance. We talk about inclusion and diversity. We talk about having representation in this place, which represents the population we serve. And then we arrange all the meetings, Monday to Friday, normal business hours, effectively excluding anybody who's in a job of work. We talked about evening meetings. This is an old chestnut. I'd like to bring it up again. If we're serious about allowing working women to attend, which I'm all for, irrespective of their ethnicity, then shouldn't we make it possible for them to attend?
That's in the survey.
And not think about when the M5 is going to be busy.
It is in the survey, it will be sent round. Good, and I agree with that. That's it. Change City Council afternoon, later afternoon and evening meetings. I'm more than happy to
All
do that.
mornings.
Yeah, all mornings.
So
No, we don't have them anymore.
On to item number 10, before we leave those good people ahead of us, have we voted to exclude the press and the public? We're going to propose in a second. Everyone in favour of the resolution, please? Are any against? That motion is passed then. So, sorry, the public and press.